Never lie, never cheat, never steal. I was raised with that lesson. I have raised my family on that lesson. I have preached that lesson to the teams that I've coached. No one's perfect. If you stumble, you apologize, and you make it right. Today, I do not apologize. I did not participate, was not aware, nor complicit in those said allegations. So for me, it's back to work and attacking with an enthusiasm unknown to mankind.
Well, that is the known truth teller, Jim Harbaugh, addressing the Michigan sign stealing scandal on Monday from LA Chargers practice. The NCAA is still investigating that case. However, the NCAA did hit the former Michigan coach with a 4-year show cause for recruiting violations during the COVID-19 recruiting dead period and for his dishonesty during an investigation into those violations. That effectively bans him from college athletics until August 2028. So for more on this situation, let's bring in our national college football expert, Brandon Marcello. Now, Brandon, we know the show cause doesn't really affect Jim Harbaugh, but can you tell us, how does it affect Michigan?
Not so much it affects Michigan right now, because as we remember, back in April, there are already some other penalties that were levied against Michigan that they agreed to. They had a 3-year probation. They've been fined $5,000. In addition to 1% of their football budget, which is going to be more possibly, and then some recruiting sanctions. So at this point, it's very clear the NCAA is kind of zeroed in on Jim Harbaugh when it comes to those recruiting violations and punishing him. And I think there's some precedent set here previously with some previous coaches in other sports. Look at basketball, for example, all those years ago when Bruce Pearl was given a 3-year show cause at Tennessee. It wasn't necessarily that he was hosting a cookout and a barbecue. It was that he lied to investigators and misled them, and that led them to give him a 3-year show cause. So similar in style here with Harbaugh. They thought he was being dishonest, was misleading them and lying to them. So they gave him a 4-year show cause. So the only way this impacts Michigan is if for some reason they decide they want to hire Jim Harbaugh once again from the Los Angeles Chargers within the next 4 years. And that's just not likely to happen.
So his replacement, Sherrone Moore, facing allegations of his own for deleting texts with Connor Stalions, who helped them steal signs, allegedly. So what impact could this have on Sherrone Moore now?
Yeah, now we got to move forward to that case, right? That's kind of the things that have kind of developed this week about some of the specifics that are going to be contained in a notice of allegations. The draft of that was leaked recently to the media. And in that, they found that there were some text messages, exactly 52, that Connor Stalions had exchanged with Sherrone Moore, and Sherrone Moore deleted those text messages the very day that this sign stealing scandal came to light in the media. So that's a big uh-oh, right? Well, remember this. Sherrone Moore has been cooperating with the NCAA and, in fact, has turned over those messages. They've recovered them and turned those over to the NCAA. So the big thing here that I'm really picking up is that there's 2 people in the 2 separate cases that have not been cooperating for that very much. That was Jim Harbaugh, who was just hit hard by the NCAA, and again might be hit with further penalties contained within this Connor Stalions case. But also Connor Stalions himself, he has not cooperated at all, hasn't even talked to the NCAA throughout all of this. So those 2 people have kind of put themselves on islands and have been in the target of the NCAA's enforcement committee. Sherrone Moore, based off everything I've heard and everything that's been reported, has been cooperating. So that puts him in a good spot. But does that set him aside from potential further suspensions? No. Remember, last year he was suspended for 1 game himself in that first penalty tied to the recruiting violations. Going forward, he could very well face further suspension tied to the Connor Stalions case, depending on what was in those text messages between him and Connor Stalions. We don't know. Was he complicit in this? Did he know full well that Connor Stalions was going to other facilities and stealing signals from other teams? That's the big question, and something that the NCAA has yet to reveal.
Well, the sign stealing scandal has been entertaining, watching it playing out on social media. Now we'll get to watch it even further on the big screen with Netflix turning it into a documentary. It'll be the first time we've heard from Connor Stalions. As you mentioned, he hasn't been cooperating with the NCAA. So what do you think we can learn from this upcoming doc?
Everything, potentially, but it's just about how forthcoming he's going to be, and also whether you could trust what he says exactly. But I will say this, based off on the very brief previous statements that his lawyer has released late in 2023, he's very much seemed to kind of become the patsy of all this. He has sacrificed himself in a lot of ways, saying, hey, Jim Harbaugh didn't know anything about this. I was kind of acting on my own. I had my own little system. I was doing all these things. So it'll be interesting to see if he sticks to that story in this Netflix documentary. And also, for that matter, as a reporter myself, how much the people asking questions of this documentary are pressing him and asking him some pertinent questions. Because, as you know, a documentary is a little bit different. I'm sure Connor Stallions was probably paid to be in this documentary, which is why he's doing it. But I wonder how much they're actually going to push him on all this, and including some other things, some wild things out there. They reported 500-page manifesto that he had for the future of Michigan football. This guy was obsessed with becoming the next head coach for Michigan football, him and some friends. Was he someone that was just kind of had a wild hair and was out there doing all these crazy things that no one really had any idea about, or they kind of knew and they just kind of blocked it aside and said, don't involve us? It's going to be fascinating to see if they can connect the dots there in this Netflix documentary later in August.
Yeah, the one quote they showed in that teaser where he said, if I'm the bad guy, then everyone in college football is a bad guy. Could be some pretty juicy tea there. All right, so Michigan now facing 2 infractions in a short amount of time. What potential penalties could the NCAA actually place on them now?
I do not expect them to punish Michigan as a program all that much further than what they've already done in the unrelated case with recruiting violations. I know a lot of people are wondering, are they going to strip the national title away from Michigan? Very unlikely. I do not see that happening. Again, I think that the NCAA has kind of made it clear at this point through the way they're going through this investigation that they have targeted Jim Harbaugh and Connor Stallions for not cooperating with this. And Michigan has made it very clear up front that we are cooperating with the NCAA. And for that matter, Sherrone Moore, the current head coach, who was the offensive coordinator previously, he's even turned over those text messages as we mentioned earlier. So what kind of penalties could there be? Maybe further recruiting sanctions. Maybe Sherrone Moore does get a suspension or 2 for a game or 2 this year. I don't know. But the other thing is we don't know when they're going to announce any type of sanctions of any sort. The NCAA doesn't have a good timeline or a history of timelines. You can look back and go, well, we expect something in the next month or 2. It could be another year. Who knows? But as of right now, I'm not expecting severe penalties to be levied toward Michigan for this.
You kind of touched on it, but the NCAA, not the timeliest organization in the world. When do you expect us to get an answer?
I honestly don't know. And I know we all want answers and we want to know now. Michigan fans, for sure, I'm sure, want to know when we can expect a bomb to drop, if there is a bomb to drop. I don't know. And the NCAA certainly is not really tipping their hat at all. I would suspect they're going to try and get this all settled here as quickly as possible, especially when you got the notice of allegations draft already put together. But just because you have a notice of allegations doesn't necessarily have the enforcement staff ready to announce penalties. So it could be quite some time. I don't know. I'm supposed to know everything, but everybody would be lying to you if they told you they know when this is going to happen.
Yeah, come on, Brandon. That's why you're here. You have to know everything. All right. Thanks so much, Brendan Marcello. Love the new background, by the way. We'll see you later on.